In Grand Blanc, Michigan, tragedy struck with a chilling force that has shaken an entire community and once again placed America's unrelenting struggle with violence inside places of worship into a global spotlight. Because on what should have been a Sunday of peace, fasting, reflection, and charity, when members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints gathered at their McCandless Road Chapel dressed in their Sunday best, preparing to worship and honor their traditions on what the faith calls a fast Sunday, where believers skip 2 meals and donate the food or money to those in need, a 40-year-old man named Thomas Jacob Sanford shattered that peace by ramming his 4-door pickup truck, 2 American flags sticking straight up in the back bed, into the front of the chapel before setting it ablaze, firing an assault weapon at worshipers, and leaving behind a trail of horror, grief, and devastation that has claimed at least 4 confirmed lives, injured 8 more, and left several still unaccounted for as police and firefighters combed through smoke, rubble, and chaos, with the FBI now leading the investigation and describing it as an act of targeted violence against people who simply gathered to pray, to reflect, and to mourn the passing of their global leader, President Russell M. Nelson, who had died just 1 day earlier. And the irony of such devastation unfolding on a fast Sunday could not be more bitter, because this is precisely the day church members are reminded to focus on kindness, on giving, and on reaching out to others. Yet instead, they were forced to shield children, carry the elderly, hide behind pews, and run for their lives as the deafening sounds of gunfire turned a sacred house of worship into a war zone, with survivors like Paula, who had been attending the same building for 38 years, recalling the moment she heard a massive bang, the chapel doors bursting open, people screaming, smoke filling the air, and the surreal, almost incomprehensible reality that her beloved place of peace was suddenly a battlefield, while another congregant, Brian, blood staining his shirt and his hand wrapped in gauze, described trying to help elderly women to safety before being struck, saying he watched the active shooter emerge from the building and realized that survival meant driving away as fast as possible. And police officers responding within 30 seconds of the 911 call engaged Sanford in the parking lot, ending the rampage 8 minutes after it began with an exchange of gunfire that left the suspect dead but left survivors traumatized, children injured, families torn apart, and a community standing in the ashes of grief because houses of worship, from a Minneapolis Catholic church to a Pittsburgh synagogue to a Sikh temple, have long been targeted by senseless violence, and the Grand Blanc Chapel now joins that heartbreaking list, standing as another reminder that no congregation, no matter how quiet or devout, is immune from the terror of gunfire. And Timothy Jones, a church member from a nearby congregation, expressed what so many Americans now feel, that Sundays meant for peace and reflection are now haunted by the inevitability of violence, making every new tragedy not just heartbreaking, but also tragically unsurprising. And as firefighters fought for hours against smoke and flames, as survivors gathered at reunification centers, hugging one another through tears, as police searched tirelessly for the missing and worked into the night amid wreckage still smoldering, what resonates most is the sense of cruel irony, the bitter fact that a community gathered to fast, to pray, and to show love was instead forced into mourning, into shock, into burying loved ones, and into asking questions that America has been asking far too often. Why houses of worship? Why families? Why children? And while investigators continue their exhaustive search trying to confirm how many more lives might be lost beneath the debris, survivors cling to memory and faith. People like Paula, who recalled teaching Sunday primary children, some of whom are now among the injured, her voice breaking as she admitted she has lost friends, or others who can still hear the crack of gunfire, the shattering glass, the screaming voices, the rush of sirens, the thick black smoke choking the sky, and the undeniable fear that safety, even in church, has been stolen. And this moment, this attack, is not just about Grand Blanc, because the echoes of the violence reverberate across the nation, each new tragedy amplifying the deep wound America carries, a wound opened in sanctuaries where people are supposed to be safe, where candles are supposed to be lit for prayer, not for memorials, where hymns are supposed to be sung in harmony, not drowned out by gunshots. And so the Grand Blanc attack stands as both a tragedy in itself and part of a tragic pattern, the latest name etched pushed onto a devastating list, the latest example of lives destroyed not by accident, but by deliberate hatred and violence, leaving behind grieving families, terrified children, and communities searching for answers, healing, and the faint hope that peace can one day be restored inside walls that are meant for worship, kindness, and unity, not for chaos, terror, and loss. And as the nation mourns with Grand Blanc, the question remains heavy in the air. How many more churches, how many more families, how many more Sundays must be stolen before the cycle ends? Because in this Michigan town, on a quiet road near a golf course and a lake, tragedy has carved itself into history, leaving behind grief, resilience, and the enduring faith of survivors who now carry not just the weight of loss, but the responsibility to remember, to speak, and to ensure that what happened inside that chapel on McCandlish Road is never forgotten.